Okay, today we're going to talk about exercise behavior and adherence. So, the reasons we exercise, why we don't exercise, and how we maintain that behavior. So, a lot of people are not meeting the guidelines. So, a lot of people are not exercising for as long as they should, or are recommended to, or not working out at all. And these are just some statistics to show how it relates to race and how many adults, and one in how many adults meet or don't meet the guidelines. These are some more statistics, and now reasons to exercise. So a lot of people exercise to control their weight or reduce risk of cardiovascular disease, reduction in stress and depression, as we talked about in chapter 18, enjoyment, building self-esteem, socializing. Some keys is that exercise combined with proper eating habits can help people lose weight. Weight loss should be slow and steady. Both the physiological and psychological benefits of exercise can be cited to persuade sedentary people to initiate exercise. So they need some kind of incentive to exercise. So if they know they're going to lose weight if they exercise, they're going to exercise. Or if they're going to gain weight, they're exercise. Maintenance and initiation of physical activity are critical. So starting a physical activity regimen and maintaining it are critical to receive benefits. Some reasons why people do not exercise are that they think they don't have enough time, they lack the energy, they don't have motivation, or they participate in very sedentary behavior like laying on the couch all day. This figure demonstrates a continuum of energy expenditure, so how much they're spending on these individual things. So how much energy is being put into whether vigorous physical activity or no physical activity at all. Reasons for not exercising and continued exercise professionals should highlight the benefits of exercise. So if you promote the benefits, if you provide an environment where people can engage and ask questions and just understand the benefits of exercising in general, that people wouldn't be so intimidated and will participate more often. There'll be less sedentary people. A lot of people think they don't have enough time to include it, but we honestly make time for the things we want to make time for. So citing those time constraints for not exercising can be resolved by understanding that these constraints are more perceived than real, which can often, you can see somebody's priorities by what they choose to make time for. And depending on age or the sex, people cite different reasons for not exercising. Some barriers include health issues, inconvenience, lack of motivation and energy, lack of social support, lack of time and money. These are some barriers to physical activity. So people might have some health issues, or they don't have access to a gym, or they don't have the energy, they're unmotivated, they don't feel like they can do something. Lack of social support, somebody's telling them they can't do it, or somebody around them is not engaging in healthy habits either, so they don't feel like they can. Lack of time and money, they feel like they don't have enough money to participate in a sport, when in reality they can just work out at home, or maybe take a walk to the park, or walk for longer periods of time, walk their dog. Problem of exercise adherence. So when you're starting an exercise program, you want to make sure that you eliminate the barriers that would inhibit or prohibit them from starting or engaging in an exercise program to begin with, because then they won't continue it. There needs to be some kind of plan in place to make sure that if these barriers come up, they'll know how to handle it, which increase the likelihood that the clients would maintain or keep going or following a fitness program. This figure shows participation rates, and it shows them dropping as the months go by. So adherence tends to drop as the months go by. So you start an exercise program and eventually end up dying down to where you stop participating or it becomes steady. Why people have a problem. The prescriptions are often based solely on fitness data, ignoring people's psychological readiness to exercise. So there is obviously there's a focus on the benefits, and a lot of people are not taking into consideration some of the psychological barriers that might be posed when it comes to exercise for some people. So most exercise prescriptions are overly restrictive or not optimal for enhancing motivation. So if something seems too hard or too lengthy, too difficult, unfamiliar, a person is most likely not to continue the program. So it's just a matter of making sure the person is familiarized with the program and not how to be flexible so that the person feel like they can make time for it and include it in their schedules. Rigid exercise prescriptions based on principles of intensity, duration, and frequency are too challenging for many people. Again, beginners, people who have not worked a day in their life, are not going to sit down and follow a lengthy program because they're not familiar with it and they were intimidated before they came in. They have no idea what they're doing. So it's how you ease them into it that matters, so that they can maintain it over a long period of time. When they're more towards the advanced stage, they're able to understand the concept behind exercise and why they're doing it and how to do it and how to continue it on their own. But when they first start, it might seem like too much for them. So we want to break it down slowly for them, because a lot of people do not understand the principles behind what goes towards an efficient program. Traditional exercise prescription does not promote self-responsibility or empower people to make long-term behavioral change. So this has to do with the fact that as a personal trainer, when making a program, the person might become solely dependent on you to make those decisions for them. So they have no type of accountability. One, they might not know what they're doing or why they're doing it. And even if they do, they might not feel like they have to do it because the benefits are not perceived as priority to them. Preventing the relapse. So planning for these things. So developing strategies to help people cope with them. Replace shoulds and wants to provide more balance in your life. Shoulds put pressure and expectations on you. So rather make things that instead of using should and want and putting pressure on the person, the things are like, changes the tone that you're referring to the benefits. So, you will get to do this, or you will be able to, so that they feel more motivated to continue your program. Using positive self-talk and imagery to avoid self-dialogues, focusing on relapse. So how they talk about it. So practicing how people talk about their progress or in general their journey on their certain fitness journey. Identify situations that put you at risk and attempt to avoid or plan for these settings. So working around these barriers that might exist in that particular individual's life that would pose an prohibition, inhibition in to get them to work out. Do not view a temporary relapse as catastrophic, because this undermines confidence and willpower. So we don't want to view certain relapses, whether big or small, as blockages in their journey, more rather than learning experiences. So they learn from it, move on, and now they have to set up a coping strategy to move past that point. What if they get to that point where they feel like they relapse? Theories and models of exercise behavior. So we have the health belief model, theory of planned behavior model, social cognitive theory, self-determination theory, trend theoretical model, ecological model, and physical activity maintenance model. The health belief model explains that the likelihood of exercising depends on the person's perception of the severity of health risks and appraisal of the cost and benefits of taking action. Overall, this gives inconsistent support or predictions of exercise behavior with the health belief model. So this one you would think would be the most common, the most popular, or the most evident one, because the likelihood of exercise, one would think, would be it's good for me, and there's a lot of health risks out there, and if I exercise, it would go against it. But as we all know, we live in America, and there are a lot of health issues, and they are increasing as the years go by. And there's still a lot of people who don't participate in any type of exercise. We have the theory of planned behavior. So exercise behavior is made up of intentions, subjective norms, and attitudes and perceptions of ability to control behavior. Intentions are the product of an individual's attitude toward a particular behavior and what is normative regarding the behavior. Quality and strength of intentions are important, as well as people's perceptions of their ability to perform better in influencing behavior. So what somebody intends to do and what they think they should be doing affects how they act on those beliefs. So social cognitive theory, exercise behavior is influenced by personal, behavioral, and environmental factors, particularly self-efficacy. So one's belief of what they're capable of, what one is capable of. Self-efficacy is strongly related to exercise participation, especially in middle-aged and older adults. Social cognitive theory has produced some of the most consistent results in predicting exercise behavior, because this one talks about more a multi-dimensional explanation. So there's different factors that go into how people act when it comes to behavior. So when it comes to exercise, so there are personal factors, behavioral factors, and environmental factors, and also how those factors affect how we think we can maneuver our situations. Self-determination theory. People are inherently motivated to feel connected to others within a social milieu relatedness. So to function effectively in that, effectiveness is to feel a sense of personal initiative in doing so, so autonomy. Self-determination theory was able to predict adherence in overweight and obese participants. So feeling connected to others to function effectively in that. So how you relate to another person can affect how you feel towards what you're capable of doing. So not having to do with self or more another person. Participants who display non-immediate exercise behavior and have strong social support symptoms that exhibit stronger motivation and enhanced exercise adherence. It has made an important contribution in terms of viewing intrinsic and extrinsic motivation on a continuum rather than a dichotomy. Trans-theoretical model. A person progresses through 6 stages of change. So there's the pre-contemplation, where the person is not exercising. Contemplation, thinking about exercising. Preparation, exercises, but not as regularly. Then we have action, has been exercised regularly, but for less than 6 months. So they're right now establishing and heading towards maintenance. Maintenance has been exercising regularly for more than 6 months, so about to be a year. Termination, exercises have exercised for 5 years. There's a big gap between maintenance and termination, because there could be relapses between maintenance and termination, which can put somebody back to stage 1 or any other stages. So it exists at a continuum rather than a single spectrum, because you can jump back and forth between stages. So here, this diagram shows it. It's right here, it's like a linear, but you can always go back to the first stage. So termination, and most people end up back at the pre-contemplation, because most people don't continue to exercise for years on end. There's always going back to either stage. During exercise, behavior induction strategies are used during the different trans-theoretical stages. Matching the intervention to the stage of change is effective in producing high levels of regular exercise. So like mentioned before, eliminating those barriers and creating coping strategies so that at whatever stage you're able to maneuver yourself to get back to the in the progressive stage. Physical activity maintenance model. Key aspects to predicting the maintenance of physical activity. So there's goal setting, self-motivation, self-efficacy, physical activity environment, and life stress. So goal setting has to do with commitment, attainment, and satisfaction. So how satisfied are you with what you're attaining? Self-motivation presents the pursuit of behavioral goals independent of any situational constraints. So you're motivated despite what's going on and how far you're reaching. So you're motivated to get things done, and you're persisting despite what's going on around you. Self-efficacy, confidence to overcome barriers and avoid relapse. So you feel like you're capable of overcoming these barriers and avoiding relapsing. Physical activity environment, access, attractiveness, enjoyable scenery, social support. So what's going on around you, how that affects you. Life stress, recent life changes, everyday hassles. So that's another factor. Anything else outside of working out is stressing you out, therefore it affects you working out, or if you work out at all. Ecological model, it examines frameworks versus specific variables, explains how the environment and behaviors affect each other. It takes into consideration interpersonal, which are biological, interpersonal, which is like things like family, institutional, like schools, and policy, laws at all levels, how they influence behavior. Integration of models. In reality, a combination of models might provide the best prediction for exercise behavior. For example, integrating the ecological model with self-determination theory could help to enhance physical activity levels. So basically what it's talking about is rather than focusing on one model or one theory, it's a combination depending on the individual and what works for them. So one person might adhere because they have a better environment and more self-efficacy, therefore they're able to work better because they like the environment and they can motivate themselves. That's just an example. Determinants of exercise adherence. In addition to theories, a number of determinants of exercise behavior have been identified. Most of the specific determinants fall within two broad categories: personal and environment factors. The personal factors include demographic variables, so like where you're from, age, and all of that, cognitive and personality variables, behaviors. Demographic variable examples like blue collar workers typically having lower exercise adherence rates than white collar workers. However, increased choices can increase their adherence rates. And continuing personal factors, cognitive and personality examples include self-efficacy and self-motivation have been consistently related to physical activity adherence. Beliefs about and expectations of benefits of exercise are associated with increased physical activity levels and adherence to structured physical activity programs among adults. For example, early involvement in sport and physical activity should be encouraged because a positive relationship exists between childhood exercise and adult physical activity patterns. Some environmental factors are the social environment, so spousal support. So if your partner is supportive, you're able to adhere more to the program because you feel supported. You feel like you can do it because there's somebody encouraging you. Spouses should be involved in orientation sessions or in parallel exercising programs. So that person is actively integrating themselves into your program. So they're aware of what's going on and they're able to motivate you and they're able to encourage you or maybe even join you. So your physical environment, so access to these facilities, access to the program, what's going on around the facility, what's going on around your neighborhood. So your physical environment, things that are actively going on around you that are external to you. Continuing environmental factors, physical activity characteristics includes exercise intensity, frequency, and duration. The intensity should be kept at moderate levels to enhance the probability of a long-term adherence. So if you're going too hard, you're going too slow, it might influence how long you stay with the program. So comparing group or individual programs. Although exercise with a group generally produces higher levels of adherence and thus exercising alone, certain people prefer to exercise alone for convenience. So knowing whether or not you like to work in a group setting or you like to work by yourself can have a big influence on whether or not you stick with the program. Maybe for accountability is a big thing. So if you're working in a group, you feel like you're held accountable more because if you don't show up, the group will notice. So leader qualities. Program leadership is important to determine the success of an exercise program. Exercise leaders influence the success of an exercise program, so they should be acknowledgeable, give lots of feedback and praise, help participants set flexible goals, and show concern for safe and psychological comfort. However, an exercise leader may not be effective in all situations, so leaders should be tailored to the participants' needs and likes. So when it comes to group settings and group exercise, for example, the specific person leading that class or leading that group exercise program might not have every single individual's needs met because it's just one person in a group rather than an individual working alongside another individual. Settings for exercise interventions. So informational interventions that use point of decision prompts or encourage their use or community-wide campaigns. Behavioral or social interventions that use school-based physical education, social support, and community settings are the individually tailored health behavior change. Environmental and policy interventions that created or enhance access to places for physical activity combined with informational outreach activity. These are just examples for settings for exercise interventions. Strategies for enhancing adherence. So 6 categories of techniques. So there's behavior modification approaches, reinforcement approaches, cognitive behavioral approaches, decision-making approaches, social support approaches, and intrinsic approaches. Category 1 has to do with the planned systematic application of learning principles to the modification of behavior. So using verbal, physical, or symbolic cues, which initiate behavior. So like these like posters that attract people's attention, contracting. So participants enter into a contract with their exercise practitioner. So like signing up for a PT. So it's a planned thing. They're planning to change their behavior and there are things that influence that. So prompts might do that. So like a package deal for a PT program or a gym membership. An example, category 2, reinforcement approaches. So chart attendance and participation. So you're keeping track of the person's participation and attendance. So for example, go into the gym, and for every 20th swipe in or signing in that you do, you get a discount, or you get added points every time you swipe your card, you come into the gym. That is a reinforcement. So you feel an incentive to continue. And also keeping yourself monitoring yourself. So you're keeping written records of the physical activity, or your PT is taking written records, and it gives you accountability and gives you motivation to continue, an incentive. Category 3, goal setting should be used to motivate individuals. So setting goals that are attainable is very important for people. So some cognitive techniques or dissociative strategies emphasize external distractions in the environment and produce significantly higher levels of exercise adherence than associative strategy focusing on internal body feedback. So if goals are flexible rather than fixed, then there's an easier way to keep the person motivated, because if it's fixed and the person doesn't get what they want, they might feel discouraged. So self-set. So you're working along the person. So the person's working along a professional to fix these goals, and they're a part of the decision making. They're a part of what's going on. So instead of the instructor setting it for them, they're telling the instructor this is what they want, and then they're working together to meet those goals. Category 4, decision-making approaches. So involving exercises and decisions regarding program structure. Like I was kind of ties into what I was saying before. So they're involved in decision-making, making them feel powerful, making them feel in control of their own progress. Developing balance sheets, completing a decision balance sheet to increase awareness of the costs and benefits of participating in an exercise program can enhance exercise adherence. Category 5, social support approaches. A person has a favorable attitude toward another person's involvement in an exercise program. Social support can be enhanced participation in a small group, the use of personalized feedback, and the use of a buddy system. So having somebody there to support you and to keep track and to just encourage you when you're feeling down or unmotivated can help a lot in how well you adhere to a program. Category 6, intrinsic approaches. So focus on the experience itself. How does it make you feel? How does it make the person feel? Take a process orientation, engage in purposeful and meaningful physical activity. So do the exercise because it means something, not just because you have to, but because it means something to you, which can, in the long term, make you want to stick to a program more than just having to do it because you have to, because you have disease. Motivational interviewing. So an intervention to increase the likelihood of a client's considering, initiating, and maintaining specific strategies to reduce harmful behavior via an interview. Motivation to change is elicited from the client rather than the counselor relationship is more of a partnership. So you're working together towards a common goal, which is that of the clients, and the motivation has to come from the client. You can't be their sole source of motivation, because they need to have it for themselves in order to continue with the program. Guidelines for improving exercise adherence. So you have to match the intervention to the participant's state of change. So you're not going to go hard for somebody who's at a beginner and a contemplation stage. You're going to go hard for someone who's at an action stage because they're already doing what they're meant to do. So you provide cues for exercise. So signs, posters, cartoons. So like make sure they're familiar with it. Make sure they're enjoying what they see. Make sure they know what they're doing. Make their exercise enjoyable. So they have to be enjoying themselves for them to be able to want to continue something. So tailor the intensity, duration, and frequency of the exercises. So match those factors to the individual themselves, because if they're a beginner, they're not going to continue if its challenge is way too much. Promote exercising with a group of friends. So having a buddy system can make them want to stay with a program longer. Have participants sign a contract or statement of intent to comply with the exercise program. Offer a choice of activities. Provide rewards for attendance and participation. Give individualized feedback. Find a convenient place. So setting is important. Have participants reward themselves for achieving certain goals. Encourage goals to be self-set, flexible, and time-based rather than distance-based. Remind participants to focus on environmental cues when exercising. Small group discussions. Have participants complete a decision balance sheet before starting the exercise program. Contains social support, daily exercise logs, time management skills, help participants choose purposeful physical activity. So activity that means something to them. And that is the end. If you have any questions, make sure to contact Injurious or either TA, including me, for any questions. Good luck.